heck is my bracelet at? Oh, man. Oh, I can do without it. Hey guys, how's it going? Well, let's get right into it. The reason why I'm making this video is for those of you that are kind of just coming into this situation and don't know exactly the details behind what's going on with the beef between Mercado Media and the enforcer. They're both pro-Ukraine content creators on YouTube that cover the war. And you know, the beef has gotten pretty out of hand. It's gone as far as a lawsuit's been filed. There's been strikes against Mercado's channel multiple times. There's been attempts to get him taken down, and there's been, recordings of the members just outright saying that their goal is to get this guy kicked off the YouTube platform and have his community destroyed. Like that's their ultimate goal. It's gotten ridiculous, but I also kind of want to set the record straight with what a lot of the enforcer and the enforcer's followers are saying on Twitter when they do reply, when people are coming into this, and the things that they say, which are, in my opinion, are just half truths, a distortion of the facts, or just outright lies. So I'm Dirt is what I go by in the community. I was originally a part of the enforcer community. I watched his stream since day 3. Kind of feels like an Alcoholics Anonymous thing. So just in case you're curious, it's been 95 days since my last enforcer stream. I think I'm going to get a chip pretty soon. I don't know. I'll have to ask Mercado, see what he's got for me. Yeah, I watched him from day 3, participated in super chats, asked lots of questions, had lots of my questions answered on the air back in the day. Was a member of both of the Discords. On Twitter, I would defend him. But I noticed, this is a while back, he was making passive-aggressive comments about another content creator in his streams. And, you know, he was accusing this guy of copying his content, just outright stealing content from him. It was just constant passive-aggressive comments, making fun of him, making fun of his community. I didn't know who he was talking about because he would never say the person's name. And he would even say, I'm not going to say who it is on stream, but if you guys are curious, somebody down in the comments or in the chat will let you know. So one day I finally asked, who are you guys talking about? And I was told Mercado Media. And I knew who Mercado Media was because I had been watching him on Mondays once the enforcer decided to stop streaming. He was just the other streamer that I found that I actually enjoyed his videos. So I had already been watching him. So I thought that was kind of weird because I watched both of the streams. I didn't really see a lot of similarities between the two of them, or a lot of changes on Mercado Media's part that I would think would indicate that he's trying to copy the enforcer. The enforcer was by far, he was the bigger channel, had more followers, all that stuff. But yeah, I just didn't get it. So then I went onto Twitter, started kind of looking at the beef that was going on Twitter, which was going on mostly between. There are some members in the LSA that are very active trolls. This guy right up there. Anyway, he's got a very powerful bracelet, so you got to be careful of that. I think mine might be more powerful, but I haven't tested it yet. But anyway, he was harassing lots of members who were ex-members of the LSA, and that's the other thing. The enforcers are. They are their own worst enemies. Almost every single member, Mercado Media, if you go over there and you interact with them, almost all of them that are very, against the enforcer and go onto Twitter, and are the ones that, just talk about this constantly, most of them, huge percentage of them used to be followers of the enforcer, like I was. Some of them were even mods of the enforcers, and we've got mods from both of his Discord servers, from before the schisms, as the enforcer calls them, where he had a falling out with his mods, and the Discords fell apart. And some of that's funny that I found out since then is that it just reinforces the enforcer being a professional victim about this stuff. He doesn't really engage in and like respond or get into actual conversations or dialogues with anybody. He just blocks you instantly, and then just goes on and then plays that he's the victim that's being attacked unreasonably from all these people. But part of what I found out is that these Discord servers, at least on one of them, they weren't even destroyed. They weren't even closed out. The ownership was passed off to them, and they were the ones that decided to close it out and then say, oh, they destroyed our Discord server. It's another schism or whatever it is. But somehow that, I think they were probably threatened by everybody being able to openly communicate in Discord. You got a lot less control over the narrative that way, would be my opinion. So it was in their benefit for there to not be a Discord server for their community anymore. They can control their community a lot better just through policing live chats and banning people on there. Jeez, man, I would love to see how many people they've got banned on both Twitter and in their live chats. I bet it is just an insane amount. But they don't even know how to unban people, so I really doubt they know how to look at how many people are banned. It's a completely different story. Anyway, it's so another thing that I found out from their mods is the way back in the day they brought this guy onto their stream, Moscow Mike, who was supposed to be somebody who was like the other side, like devil's advocate. He supported Russia and thought Russia was within their rights to do what they were doing, and it was so ridiculous, and it felt staged and everything. I remember that back in the day, and they kicked him off a stream, and then then they started the whole Moscow Mike thing on their channel. They took that stream down. They took down a lot of streams from back in the day. If you go through and look at the days and the amount of streams that they've taken down, it's just ridiculous. They're obviously trying to hide something, but the mods have told us that was their dad, so that was all staged and it was all just a setup. And there's just a lot of weird things that I've found out since then. But getting back kind of onto topic, who started the beef? So my opinion is hands down it was the enforcer. The enforcer is the one that kept making the passive aggressive comments, all that stuff. And even if they did suspect him of copying them, this should be flattering. I mean, if they're creating YouTube content and they're successful enough that somebody is copying them and kind of mimicking them, that should be like, awesome, man, we're obviously doing something right, somebody's copying us. But whatever, you can get upset about that kind of stuff, but man, the things that we'll get into that later, the things that he thought was copying is like, oh, well, they were playing videos with music over it, and that's what we do. Like, you just described a title card, like an intro to pretty much everybody does that. And the images were similar, the same, or whatever. Yeah, it's the Ukraine war. You're both covering the same thing, so it's going to be similar stuff. Just ridiculous accusations, but it kept going on, and so finally Mercado addressed it. Actually, I have a video to pull up of that. Let's see if we can find. Yeah, so, man, can we just take a moment to admire his mustache? It's not creepy at all. That's what I'm going to say anyway.
Been with the Nazis side by side, had Hitler not screwed up that whole, had not ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And I gotta play the audio first, just so we can hear what was said about my channel here from the enforcer last night. And I know this is just so stupid. I'm literally spending 5 minutes on this, and then we're going to continue, or 5 to 10, because this is going to take some time. So
I think he spends.
I'm going to play what was said, and then I'm going to address it afterwards. Okay, so I'm going to run it through, play what was said, and then I'll address it, and then we're moving on. Okay, we're going to move on. So here's what was said last night about Mercado Media.
Who puts in a $10 donation and says, Shahed drone warheads are 88 pounds. You are thinking of the entire drone itself, which is 440 pounds.
And I thank you for the support, and I think I may be correct on that, because come to think of it, it doesn't make a lot of sense for the warhead to be 440 pounds. And so thank you so much once again. I hope that does address the comment. Thank you for correcting that, because I'm fairly certain that would be a lot more correct than mine. Also, someone said, Enforcer is upset that Starsky went on his rival's channel last night. Starsky does whatever he wants. He's been on everyone's.
Operator Starsky came on Mercado Media. I wasn't expecting it. It wasn't planned. I didn't talk to Starsky. I didn't reach out to him. He was just in my chat, and I noticed it while I was live, and then I invited him on Discord to have an interview right then and there while he was in the chat.
So I want to point out that this is day 239, so this is 11 months ago. This is way before the beef about the slush fund comments and the Nazi thumbnail and the cease and desist letter and the lawsuit and all that stuff, which is when this really started to heat up. This was back when it was just beef between some of the LSA trolls and Mercado Media, and then, you know, people being like, hey, they're making comments about you guys again.
Planet
channel, and Starsky's a great guy, and I don't care what he does. That's his own thing. The thing that has annoyed both Matthew and me, and I can't really blame you, because you haven't been with us all day every day while I do this for 60 hours a day. But the one thing that's annoyed us is that someone sent me a Discord saying, hey, this guy's imitated your intro card. And the intro card was the exact same as mine. It's got the little triangle in the bottom left corner that says stream starts in, and it has a minute countdown. It has music playing over it. There's an intro card that starts the stream. It's literally the exact same, like in formatting and everything. The titles used to be different. Now they include caps. You know, and caps aren't special, but when you start to also copy my thumbnail with the exact same text font and the exact same kind of pictures, then it starts to get a little bit on the nose that it's direct imitation. And on top of that, I don't even view them as a rival. So, you know, that's that. You know, like, there are no rivals on YouTube, because we're not vying for, you know, like an airtime on CBS. You know, I run my stuff at the same time every night. It's been like this since day one. But still, you know, no, that's not the reason. The reason is everything else that was our original work that we've been doing since the start, and now it's been slowly encroached over and over. And y'all have actually heard us, if y'all are very attentive, making jokes about.
Anyway, I think that's enough of that. But that just basically shows you kind of where that was the first time, as far as I know, that Mercado addressed any of those comments or any of the beef that was going on in the community live on stream. Now, let's get on to the how this escalated with the slush fund comment and the Nazis. So basically the first thing was the Nazi thumbnail. He made a comment about, like, you know, he's basically insinuating that pro-Ukrainians shouldn't be supporting open Nazis or showing Nazis in their thumbnail, which was one of the Russian units that was in the Belgorod region, was a known neo-Nazi affiliated group, and they had a picture of it in their thumbnail. You know, and the appropriate way, in my opinion, to respond to something like that as a content creator would be like, hey, you know, like, maybe we had that there because they were part of the news that we were covering, and no way do we support, you know, their views or, you know, something. There's ways to have reacted to that instead of being like, he's telling us we support Nazis, which he didn't say at all, and he's saying that we're Nazi supporters and blah blah blah. Like, so taking it way out of context. You know, it was a little bit of a jab by Mercado, but it was a good point. As Ukraine supporters, we got to be really cautious, especially with the, you know, all of the Russian propaganda saying that Ukraine is Nazis. You got to be really careful not to be looking like you are supporting a Nazi. So, I mean, it could have been valuable advice if they'd have taken it. Then, after that, so one of the things that viewers were constantly, not viewers, so that the trolls were constantly saying when they were interacting with people on Twitter was that, like, you should show the enforcer more respect, because he's raised over $1 million for Ukraine. And sometimes they would make fun of the size of Mercado Media or the amount that Mercado Media has raised in comparison not being anywhere as close, blah, blah, blah. There's just ridiculous comments. So he finally got sick of it, and he came out and was just like, basically, they haven't raised $1 million for Ukraine. They've raised $1 million. That's awesome. He even congratulated the community, said, that's you guys that's doing that. That's not the enforcer himself, but you guys have done an awesome job at raising this money. But the way that those international nonprofits work is you're donating to a centralized fund. You have no control over how they use that money, where they use that money, any of that. But he called it a slush fund. He said it goes into a slush fund. And the funny thing is, he wasn't even talking about them. He was talking about the organizations. At no point has him or anybody that's prominent in the community accused the enforcers of misappropriating funds, which is the way that they took it. And they're saying, like slush funds that so let's Google that really quick. What is a slush fund? I'm using Bing for the fun of it because I don't want to go to Google. Alright, so slush fund. One of the first things that pops up is slush funds are a sum of money that are set aside as a reserve without a designated purpose. Exactly like what he's talking about. So you got Doctors Without Borders. It goes into a centralized fund without a specific purpose, like this money is for Uganda or this money is for Ukraine. It just goes into a centralized fund, and then when they go over these countries and help, they take that money out of those funds. They might have somebody on a board that decides how much money they spend in each area, each conflict, blah, blah, blah. A lot of that money goes to administrative fees, paying people salaries, all that. So the basic gist of what he was saying was true. Maybe slush fund wasn't the right word, because if you look down here, there's another reserve of money used for illicit purposes, especially political bribery. And that's the way that they took it. They went and grabbed onto that, and they were like, that's what he was saying. My opinion is that this version of slush fund is what I knew of, the term slush fund. Most people that I would talk to, I would think that that's the way that they would deem the term slush fund as well. Maybe when you get into legalese and some of that stuff, there's a more specific, accurate definition for it, but it still doesn't meet the standards for slander or defamation or any of the things that they were suggesting, because his intent and the way that he was using it. So that he does that, and they send a cease and desist letter, which is funny because the community, which I think he talks about in here, the community had already corrected him and been like, hey, that's not the right terminology to use. You should rephrase it or clarify. And he did. He almost immediately clarified exactly what he was meaning, and went on to kind of retract his statement a little bit, which in my opinion he didn't need to do, but he still did it. But then they still
Unless
sent
I ever
him
see a Nazi on their thumbnail again, which I will call it out. Which, by the way, you guys,
Day 456.
I am a United States of America citizen. Anybody in the United States that has a public platform, that has a public audience, is subject to criticism. Okay? Anyone. If you have public shit going on, you are subject to criticism, and you cannot respond to criticism by throwing your fucking
They're either gonna have to learn how to deal with criticism, learn how to address it, or they're just gonna need to get off the internet, man. Because this is, this is life. They're pretty young. They haven't got to that point, I guess, where they have realized it. They still feel really entitled to everything. They feel like everybody owes them their respect, whatever it is. I don't know, but they need to get over it.
Lawyer document at it like it's gonna scare someone that's brand new out here and doesn't know how life works would be scared by something like this. Oh no, lawyer document. Oh no, I better stop. Oh no. So here it is, right? And this happened after the stream yesterday, and during the stream actually yesterday, I had corrected what I had referred to in my previous post about the whole thing, about the entire The entire post I had made about the last paragraph specifically.
Or redacted.
Let me see if I can try to pull up the whole
Whatever.
thing. It doesn't really matter because I don't want to show it again just in case, right? But I had alluded to the donations, and I tried to make it to the point where when you organize for fundraisers on here, like Red Cross or Doctors Without Borders, yeah, there's no guarantee that all of that money, and it's known that all of that money is not going to where you say it is. Like the recipient decides like how much percentage it goes out. So I was trying to say, like, for YouTube stuff and hosting fundraisers, you got to make sure they're like Ukraine-based fundraisers, so that you know the money, at least on YouTube's end, is actually going to Ukraine from that fundraiser. Like if I did a fundraiser tonight, for example, and it was a Red Cross fundraiser, and even if I titled it Ukraine War Fundraiser, for example, okay, that doesn't mean anything. That means absolutely nothing. Red Cross is.
So this is literally the day after he sent that cease and desist, and I mean he did exactly what they asked. He clarified his statement. He kind of takes back. He even says in this video that slush fund wasn't the right word to use, but he did that. And then the beef kind of kept going between the trolls, and it just kept stacking up, kept coming back up in chats, constantly having people come in and spam LSA and chats and everything else. While in the meantime, everybody in Mercado Media, we were trying to tell them to not go and talk in their chats. You know, there was a lot of people that still watched them and listened. We asked them not to say anything in chat, not to troll them, to leave them alone. Then, so that was day 456. We go over to day 472, and then on day 472 is when he receives the. Let's see.
To be found,
This is when he
and
receives
that is who I was talking about.
the
I wasn't even
lawsuit.
talking about the enforcers, but don't worry, I corrected myself the very next day in this stream on May 25th, 2023. Let's take a listen. And I'm so glad you're here. Do what you understand what you mean. And what's also funny about this is that reference has actual neo-Nazi on your thumbnail. That's how you know they aren't taking the time to research anything. They just pull up Reddit, collect super chats for 3.5 hours. I've had enough, especially from viewers that constantly tell me to not bring it up. And this is the part that they are doing the lawsuit over. By the way, majority of their donations they collect on Sundays go to slush funds. Very rarely do they actually fundraise for Ukrainian destinations. So they're out for everything, but they've raised nearly 100,000 for Ukraine is horseshit, right? And I got that number wrong too. It was nearly 1 million, so I was wrong there. So now, 100%, the word slush fund wasn't the right word to use here. That was an incorrect. I was just feeling myself here. Honestly, I was mad, so I just used that word. But when I wrote this, instant corrections from my own community said, hey, slush funds isn't the right word to use there. I understand what you mean. And what's also funny about this is that reference has nothing to do with the enforcers. That reference has to do with where their money gets to. So like when Red Cross takes it, when like Doctors Without Borders takes it, and what they.
So that's basically it. So then the enforcers, they put together a lawsuit and email it to him. They filed a lawsuit in Alabama, which is part of the reason why they haven't been able to actually serve him with a lawsuit, just because it's not really the way that those kinds of things work. There's a really weird gray area in the law where you could say that because he streams in Alabama, he does business in Alabama, so then he would be subject to it. But that is next to impossible to enforce or to do. So, you know, that lawsuit basically went nowhere. But even if you would have got in front of a judge and they presented all of this, I mean, they really had no case to begin with. All this was like a bully tactic, and it got their community riled up and behind something and gave them something to talk about for a really long time. So then, you know, it just kept going between the two communities. Lots of beefing back and forth. The thing that's funny is they've got a lot of people in Mercado Media's Discord, and they watch and they report on everything that they see in Mercado Media. And we've even listened to the streams where they've talked about, like, reacted to stuff in Mercado Media's Discord live on their stream. So Matt was like reading what they were saying and responding to it live on stream because they were watching everything that was going on in Mercado Media. But I mean, that just kind of cracks me up. I mean, granted, we had members that were listening to them too, so it's, you know, it's kind of going both ways, but it's just ridiculous. So then some of the other things that their members are saying is that, like, so now I've kind of shown that Mercado didn't start it. Mercado isn't really the one that escalated it because they took what he said completely out of context to play the victim and you know, say something that is completely different than what was being said or even insinuated. Then you've got him saying that oh well, Mercado doxed the enforcers, and that's just not true. I've yet to have anybody show me anything that proves or even shows that Mercado doxed the enforcers at all. Some of the things that, like, so day 3 of their stream, he minimizes his window like this. He's got all these files and folders all over his desktop that have his first and last name, all kinds of other revealing stuff on his desktop. So right off the bat, you know what his name is. He talks about being from Alabama constantly in his stream. He talks about being involved in reenacting, all this. So you've just got, like, anybody who knows how to type things into Google is going to be able to find him, because you type him into Google, he's one of the first things that pops up if you type in his name and the state. That's it. That's all you got to type in, and you get all that information. He's even done streams where he's gone in through his Amazon, and you can see the town or the zip code where he's at. So you've got that, and then I mean, he talks about his dad being an attorney. He talks about, like, just the amount of sensitive information that he has talked about on there. Anybody who wanted to could find out anything on him. So I guess the closest thing that I've ever seen Mercado do as far as doxing was he showed a picture of his house. Now, showing the picture of his house in the context of what he was doing it, though, makes a lot of sense. And he's not even the one who released the guy's address and did all that stuff. That was a completely different YouTuber that the enforcer is also beefing with, which is also where all these threats came from. He keeps accusing Mercado Media community of making all these threats, and he has not produced one single bit of evidence that anybody from Mercado Media or even the group has been threatening him. He talks about it a lot. He doesn't show anything. That's one of the things that's different about Mercado, is that he actually shows the receipts for everything that he's talking about. But the house, so showing it was kind of in the context of a lot of us that were watching his streams early on, the enforcer streams, were under the impression that they were, like, struggling college students, and they were doing this as kind of a side gig, and they were struggling to do it because they were going through college and trying to pay their bills and everything else. So people were donating super chats, and they'd be like, "Oh, this is the pizza fund. This is for the coffee fund, and, you know, this is to keep the lights on." Blah blah blah. They just went on and on about, like, you know, kind of pandering for these super chats and for this money, and how it was helping them be able to have lives and be able to make the stream. And then come to find out that they live in their dad's mansion, and doesn't really seem like they struggle for anything. Now they go on to say that, oh, their dad makes them work for everything. Their dad charges them rent. Their dad does all this stuff. But the sheer amount of money that they pull in from this, and then saying all that, you know, and there's some people that struggle to get by that were probably donating money that might not have if they had known the actual facts. So that's what that was about. The threats again, getting back onto that, anytime that anybody in Mercado Media would start to make threats or even talk about going on and reporting all their videos, the mods and other members of the community would tell them that that's not what we do, stop that. And then we'd even defend as far as, because there were people that would be like, oh yeah, they're taking all those donations and they're stealing them. And so the mods and lots of other members of the community would explain like, hey, they don't ever touch that money. That goes through the YouTube Give thing. They never touch it. There's no way that they could be taking advantage of that. You need to stop saying that. So they shut them down over the misinformation, which is funny because that's the same misinformation that they say that Mercado Media is saying about them, and it's not true. We're actually shutting people down that are talking about stuff like that. And then they get into this beef with this other channel, and this other channel, the guy is kind of a little unhinged, a little bit on the extreme side of things. But there are some members that are members of Mercado Media that are also followers of his. That guy has made some indirect threats to them. And so I'm imagining that the threats that they're getting, if they are actually getting any threats, are coming from him and not somebody in Mercado Media. But he is painting the picture that all of the negative stuff that is coming towards him is because of Mercado. He won't take ownership for anything. He's beefed with several other YouTubers. And like Georgie from Ukraine Matters was trying really, really hard to stay out of this. There was even a point where with the NAFO truck, the fundraiser, one of the members from the LSA, Mark, who's a really good guy, he donates to tons of different Ukraine charities. He's a member of a bunch of different communities, but he paid enough or donated enough that he could choose something that goes on the side of the truck. So he put Leaf Spring Army advances on the side of it, and somebody took a picture of that, gave it to the enforcer, and they posted it on theirs and said, oh look, it's the Leaf Spring Army truck. Didn't give any shout out to the person who fundraised it. Didn't say, hey, this was another creator's fundraiser and one of our members donated a little bit to it, so we got this on the side. They basically went in and took full credit for it and said that it was their truck that they fundraised for, is the way that it felt. And so there were a lot of members of his community and a lot of members of Mercado's community that thought that was dirty, and they kind of were pushing Georgie to say something about it. But Georgie refused, said, he didn't really care if they were taking credit for it. It was all about Ukraine. He didn't want to get involved in the beef between Mercado and the enforcer because he wanted to stay focused on Ukraine. So he tried really hard to stay out of it, but then when it came to these community strikes, or not the community strikes, the copyright strikes on the channel and trying to get Mercado shut down, he did basically come out and say, hey, this is fair use. You really need to take those down. That's not the way to do this. And then the enforcer just come out and just trash talked the guy from Ukraine Matters for no reason. Like, just ridiculous stuff. And he acted like that guy was so rude to him before too, and he deserved it. But Georgie produced messages from him where they talked about how great he was and how they loved having him on the stream and all this. So it's just another thing that, like, the enforcer does that constantly. He'll say something or he'll post something in a way that it seems like one thing, and then the evidence comes out that's contrary. Like with him saying that he tried to sort this stuff out with Mercado, and Mercado refused to talk to him. And that's not what it is at all. He only showed part of the message. He didn't show the whole message, where he said, hey, I'm on a train from Poland. I can't talk on the phone right now. And he was just like, oh, he said he won't talk to me on the phone. He also said he cursed him out because he said one curse word. Man, that guy is pretty sheltered if that's getting cursed out. Don't know if he'd be able to handle it outside of Alabama. But so getting into the fair use side of things, and explaining exactly what happened with these videos that they did copyright strikes on. So the copyright strikes kind of exist to make sure that nobody's stealing your work. But in the U.S. there's a thing called fair use, where you can use other people's work without their permission for certain things. And those things are criticism. Well, here, let's just read it off it. Because here's another thing. I saw the enforcer was like insinuating that some people were dumb because they were saying that this wasn't fair use, and that they need to read YouTube's guidelines, which, you know, if you read their overview, which is, I'm assuming, as far as they got, it kind of seems like that. Where they say don't use content in their videos that someone else owns the copyright to, such as music tracks, snippets of copyrighted programs, or videos made by other users without necessary authorizations. But then you go over here to copyright exceptions, and so YouTube doesn't enforce fair use. That's all done through the legal system in the U.S., which is kind of where it seems like this might be going. But in the U.S., the most widely known copyright exception is fair use. When deciding whether a use is fair, courts look at 4 factors: the purpose and character of the use, the nature of the copyrighted work, the amount of sustainability of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole, and the effect the use upon the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. Some activities that may qualify as fair use include criticism, commentary, and news reporting. Fair use aims to promote freedom of expression. So if you were actually able to, I think you can still go into his Facebook and watch these videos. Those videos fall under all of that. They were criticism, and he did his own commentary over it, and it was for the news reporting of what was going on between the two of them. He was showing snippets of their streams, and when they were talking about him, actually, criticizing him, and he was kind of responding to it and showing what was being said. So that's just hands down black and white. It's fair use. That's the whole intention of fair use. The thing that's crazy about this to me is that the enforcer relies on fair use for his streams as well. So if he was to start having all of these content creators start reporting him and copyright striking him for all these videos and everything that he uses in his streams to talk about the Ukraine war, which he only does, it looks like 20-30 minutes of videos and snippets of the Ukraine war, and then it's like an hour to 2 hours of him talking to people, pandering for snap or super chats and money, answering questions, that kind of stuff, which his users are into that. So, you know, it is whatever it is, and I used to participate in some of that as well, so I'm not hating on you guys if you like that, but that's just kind of what it seems like. It's 20 to 30 minutes of actual news, and then hours of talking about stuff and asking for super chats. Now, but anyway, if he was going to start getting that kind of stuff, he wouldn't be able to exist. There's tons of examples that, like, pull up. This is Greg Doucette. He's big in the bodybuilding world, and he does videos constantly where he plays somebody else's video and he criticizes it. This is a good example right here.
I'm gonna hold off. Eventually he'll do a video, and I'll not be able to hold off anymore. That happened here. This happened. Now you get the video.
In today's video, I'm gonna show you 11 different low-calorie snacks.
So he takes that guy's video and then just breaks down and shreds into him about his supplements and the things that he sells and everything. And I mean, because that's fair use. That's what it's there for. That's how you can do that. Now, Greg Doucette's got like 2 million subscribers. If this guy was to hit him with a copyright strike and try to take down his channel for this, I'm sure that would not end well. That would probably end up in court, and probably favor Greg Doucette, because any judge that looks at this kind of stuff is going to be like, well, you know, this is fair use. That's what fair use exists for. They're not taking your work and posting it and saying that it's their work and profiting off of your work or any of that. They are responding to your work, and you know, and they're giving their commentary and their criticism on it. Got another YouTuber over here, Donut Operator. He's got 4.61 million subscribers. Every single one of his video is somebody else's videos, and he is going over it and giving commentary, and that is everything that he does. You got Watch Mojo.
got a letter in the post. What is this? T-Series saying cease and desist.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 20 biggest feuds in YouTube history.
I didn't pick that video for any irony, I promise. But yeah, Watch Mojo, 25.2 million subscribers, and they use other people's content. And do you think that they go out and they get permission from every single person? Any of these people, do you think they go out and they get permission from every single one of these content creators before they make these? No, they don't, because it's not necessary. It's fair use. And I guarantee that the enforcer doesn't reach out to all of the people that he uses their content and get permission. He's using their videos to do his commentary and make his videos. I mean, that's how it works. And so you get into this. I'm not going to go through that video, but it kind of explains that YouTube isn't the one that. So basically, the way that YouTube's copyright system works is that they went through and they put manual strikes on his channel saying that they were using his copyrighted material, and so YouTube automatically sides with the person putting in that. So they automatically strike the channel, which is what happened, and they've shut down his channel until this is all done and over with. And then you've got two options. You can either respond to the person who put the strike on and try to work it out by talking to him, or you can put in a counter notification. So he's put in a counter notification. YouTube's gone through and looked at it, and I think basically they've determined that, hey, this is fair use, but that's not for us to decide. Now the enforcer's got 10 days to either start a court case with the go through the legal proceedings with copyright claim, and have it determined by a judge. And then after it's determined by a judge, YouTube will decide their action one way or the other. The problem with this is that if the enforcer goes through with this, he opens himself up for, just a lot of negative stuff on his side. Mainly because he has shut down a content creator's channel, and is specifically targeting him, and there's so many receipts and so much evidence that this was his intent to prevent him from being able to make, and this particular person relies on this for part of his income. So now you're interfering with their income, and you've opened yourself up for a countersuit. And a judge is going to look at this and is just going to, there's no way that a judge is going to take your claim seriously. However, the counterclaim would definitely be taken seriously. Not only that, just what you look like to the community now. You are a content creator that is attacking somebody who's supposed to be on the same side, so we're all supposed to be supporting Ukraine, but you're using your energy, effort, and money to try to completely destroy another pro-Ukrainian content creator. And your excuse is that you're being threatened, your livelihood's being threatened, all this other stuff, but you have yet to produce any proof that the person you're accusing is the person that's doing any of that, or that it's even happening for that matter. But at the end of the day, this whole thing it's really just silly to me. It's gotten out of hand, and I'm not going to say that it was all the enforcer. There are people in the Mercado Media community that have definitely pushed this beef and helped promote it and get it to where it's at right now. But for the most part, when you're looking at Mercado versus the enforcer has definitely purposefully tried to spin this into something more than it is. He has escalated it every step that he can, and he is doing everything that he can to try to destroy the livelihood of another content creator. That's where I'm at on it. That's my opinion. If you guys got some evidence or you've got something that you want to say, I'd be more than happy to counter you or listen to what you've got to say. But I've looked at almost everything that's been posted on Twitter that I can see, because I'm blocked from the enforcer. Not that I don't have another Twitter that I can look at his stuff, because you're not supposed to do that. or are you? I don't know. Anyway, not that happens, but yeah. So right now, what I'm doing is I want to help Mercado raise money for his legal defense. I want to see him get the best legal representation that he can get, so that if this does go to court, or if he decides to take action in and of himself after getting threatened to be sued so many times and having these lawsuits thrown at him and everything, I mean, you can blame the guy if he decided to just hire a lawyer and go after them, for whatever he can get from them. But whatever it is, I'm going to put links down in the description to Mercado's Venmo, CashApp, and PayPal, so that you can, if you want to, send him money to help him with his legal fight, to try to keep it separate from what we do for Ukraine, so that we're not taken away from Ukraine. Then send that if you can spare it, and let's help him get past this and get this taken care of and get it over with. But anyway, that's all I gotta say.